to do this. Yes, I do.
So today we're going to do something a little different. I got permission from a freelance client of mine to share my work as I'm working on it, to stream it to you guys. So today we are going to be doing that. We have this one shot. I wanted to show you guys some of the kind of like the work in progress of how I'm going to go about working on this stuff. This is just a comp shot. We're going to be comping in a knife blade, like the tip of the knife, to this VFX shot. And I thought this would be a fun, like, kind of thing to do together on stream today. You know, I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to go about it, but that's the journey of visual effects. So I use this website called Asana to keep track of all of my visual effects shots that I'm working on. And what we're doing here is we're going to be adding a knife tip through the hand, light peeking through the hand when the knife is pulled out, and add blood. That's our description of our VFX shot. So we're going to pull this up. And of course, we're going to be compositing inside of Nuke. You know, if you guys are doing your own comp work, you can use whatever software you prefer. So starting out, I do know that we're going to be working on this VFX shot. So I'm just going to copy the name of this. And then let's go find it. And this is our visual effects plate. So if I play through it, we could go ahead and see what our shot is. We already know what our requests are on this shot. But first thing we really need to do is set up our actual project. So I'm going to change our frame rate here to 23.966. All right, great. So we'll go ahead and set the frame rate here. Now our color management is already set up inside of our project here, so we don't have to adjust anything as far as that's concerned. But now that we've got just our plate here, I need to do a few things. First, I created a plugin called Tool Sets, which allows me to import different types of tools into my comp here. First thing we're going to need to do is actually denoise this clip, right? So I'm going to add in our denoise nodes. You don't have to do this. Like, you could probably just, you know, add these nodes in yourself. I just find myself in every single comp I ever do, adding in the exact same nodes every single time. So I created custom, you know, imports essentially for that. What we need to do is actually denoise our shot, because you'll notice that it's actually a pretty noisy shot. And when we start to comp in our knife as well as the hole here, we don't want it to stand out by not having the same noise pattern or no noise whatsoever. So we need to prepare a noise profile to first denoise our shot, so that way later we can regrain it. I'm just going to use the auto profile thing here and see what it finds. I would say it's not great. It becomes a little chunky in areas. So we're going to actually prepare a different noise profile. Just apply that. It's a little better. It's a big difference. Look at that, guys. So let's go ahead and just render this out. All right, now our pre-render is finished. We're going to go ahead and import it. Now, what do we do with our imported pre-render? We have another tool set called default. So let's go ahead and load in our default. This is my standard nodes that I use every single time I'm comping. If I ever do anything more complex, like I have a specific shot, I will create a whole separate tool set for this. But this works for most of what I try to do. So first of which, we have our plate. We just drag that there. And then we have our degrain plate, which goes all the way to the very top. And this is where we're going to create our pre-render read node. Voila, we got it. So now we have a denoised version of our shot. Now let me tell you real quick what our comp is doing here and go down the line so that way you guys can really follow along what's happening. So I have a couple different dots here, but that's just to separate and make it easier. This is an invisible line that's going to this first dot. So everything I like to add, if I add a grade node here, then it's going to be grading after that denoise is comparing. And then, so what is this regrain doing? I'm using DOS grain, which is comparing the original plate with the grain against the degrained version of the plate. So that way I can analyze those two different plates and then create a noise sample that's going to regrain my comp at the end of the shot. And that whole reason is that way when we send it back, if you ever are working, well, you really should do this all the time, but a lot of times you're working with visual effects houses, they want the grain to be exactly perfect and match. And this is the best way to do it, is where you have a degrained version of your plate and a grained version of your plate. And then it analyzes the two and then gives you a perfect sample of what that grain looks like. After I do that, I then reapply the alpha, which I'm just using a shuffle here. I think Victor gave me a better way of doing this last week. I can't remember what he told me to do. I'll have to go check that out again. Then I crop it, and then I create a video export or an MXF export. Now, I'm using MXFs because, well, actually, I'm not even using MXFs on this one. This export right here, I'll just show you real quick. The way I have it set up is that the plate is here, the name of the film, the VFX shot number, the date that it's created, how many frames are inside of your sequence here, which you can set all that up inside of your project settings, by the way. And then, of course, my studio logo. This is great because it's dynamic to every shot. So if I ever version up this script, it'll actually update the version, and then it'll also update the name if I ever go to a different shot. Then with the EXRs, it's similar, but it's only going to export just the actual plate itself, not cropped whatsoever. I like to turn the brightness up while I'm doing tracking and things like this. Makes it a little easier to see everything. And then later we could turn the brightness back down, but this just makes it easier for me to know what I'm doing when I'm doing it. Okay. We might have a little bit of stuff to track here, especially with this hand. I'm thinking, let's try this first. We're going to put the blade in. Essentially what this is just like a blade that I hand painted using a different shot that had a profile. This will work somewhat, but we're probably going to need to recrop it. Let's just create an asset out of this real quick. Let's do that, reformat it. Add a well, let's do a corner pin first. Do a corner pin. And now that we actually have all of these, let's line this up. Probably need to adjust the grade and everything like that. But if we line this up, we might be able to get away with as much as we can, because that's my favorite thing ever, is just getting away with stuff. I feel like that lines up pretty nicely. And then we're only going to be using it on this side of the hand, so I'm not too concerned about this over here. So we're going to need this same 3D kind of like bluish effect that's going on at the top. We could do this by simply just hand paint some of this. That's pretty nice. Okay, great. So we have this corner pin set up here. I think for this knife, we're going to want to track the blade here. See, her blade is moving all over the place. Luckily, her hand doesn't ever move that crazy much, but holy camole, guys, this is going to be an intense one. I'm going to add in a tracker node here. Let's see what we can get out of this, all right? This is going to be wild. I'm going to do add track. And let's just try to get like a basic track first. Her hand snaps back so fast. That's all good. Like something like that. Probably need something a little bit further up. We need this rotation, but we can't afford the drift because it's going to be too noticeable. We're doing bloody things. That's what we're doing. All right, let's do transforms, rotations, scales on all of this. And then let's just see how bad this is, okay? We're going to, well, we can always test this first. Sometimes what I like to do is just output like a stabilization node. And then if you stabilize it, you can just really see how bad it is. Let's set this as the out frame and then just render that. You know, low key, this isn't terrible. Let's output a match move baked. So that way we don't actually have to have the linked connection every single time. I'm going to merge this over top of a constant. And this is another thing that we're probably going to have to do here. Let's set up our project settings here to be 4K DCP. And then set that to the background. So that way our knife at 1000 is in the correct rasterization. And then we use the match move. Okay, so that's the first thing for tracking. I think that we're pretty good on that. But we need to chop off, like, we need to create like a line on the hand of where like the blade is coming from, and then it's going this direction. So this part of the hand needs to have like a roto on it that it can't do. You know what I'm saying? We gotta make it so it looks like it's coming through the hand. I'm gonna use Mocha now. To use Mocha, go to the beginning here, launch it. Let's do this. Let's track it. We're just trying to use Mocha right now to create a nice little roto for ourselves. How does that look? Okay, let's copy paste this. Do export data. Roto basics, copy to the clipboard. Let's paste it. I'll probably use this as a subtraction method. So we'll just merge this again with that. And let's do silhouette or stencil. How does that, guys, look? It moves with the blade. And then now it's the hand. The reason why we had that here move with the hand when the blade is moving around is because she should be moving the blade. I don't like when it gets to there. Okay, so now we do have this roto. What we could do is we could take this roto, use a transform node, and then let's just make that slightly that direction. If we then blur it quite a bit, move this whole thing down, I think. And then I want to add in a grade node here. Is that possible? And let's just darken that. That's just to give a little bit of ambient occlusion to the edge of our blade here to the hand. Help blend everything in. Essentially all we're doing is just taking our exact same roto we have and then just, you know, moving it slightly down. Especially since it's moving at a different pace than the hand. Okay, that's pretty good. I just don't like the bottom. So this has like this kind of like fringing on the bottom and this does not. So let's go ahead and fix that real quick. Yeah, that adds a nice little extra realism to it, guys. Woo! And then the hand currently doesn't have any kind of like effect to it. So we're going to want to do that as well. Let's just launch this again and we'll stabilize the shot. I think if we select this and then go to export data, we can do corner pin. This might not be the best way to do this though. Could just, I wanted it to be like a planar tracker almost that we're outputting so that way you could use the relative. I don't know if with Mocha you can do that where you output the planar tracker. So let's add in a smart vector. Do a smart vector. It is 4K, which is a little unfortunate, but we'll make the detail set to like 0.9. Strength being 1.5 is totally fine. We'll use an export right node. And then we're going to save this into our pre-render folder just like we had previously. But this is going to be called Smart Vector. Go ahead and render this out. Okay, our smart vectors are done, which means that we could do vector distort. Then we're going to use this from our smart vector data. Now we just need to paint on some gore on this hand. Actually, well, let's keep this on for a moment. Just remove that. Go back to where the blade is. And let's just hand paint it here. I mean, we could go do AI and stuff like that, but why make our life easier? Use a constant and probably after the fact, use a shuffle with another constant. Set that value to A1 and rechange the alpha chain there. Let's pre-multiply that to RGBA. I'm overthinking it. That's what's going on. We just need this section of the hand. And then maybe this right here just come from that. So now all of this, let's set that to none. There we go. And then this right here, we just set to auto alpha. Perfect. So now all I need to do is paint in some gore. How hard is that? Probably using something close to black. And let's do that. Remove the distortion for right now. There we go. Now we don't quite want black. We're probably going to want it to match the redness of everything else. So let's get that in there. Let's just paint in some of that. And I like to just like sample colors as I'm going because you never know what you're going to want. So let's do that. Try to get some highlights in there from this fleshiness. Probably blurring as I'm going. The real trick here is to not be terribly consistent, you know, just trying some different things here. Let's add another row of paint. And let's go ahead and select kind of like this red here. And this one, let's change the, instead of over, let's do like a multiply. Just trying to get that maybe, and then let's just plus it up a little bit with some red. Just kind of like adding in some dark blood here. Let's look at some assets now. We probably need to comp some blood in. This year, if we're taking what we took last year, it's like what's up for grabs this year? We've got Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, Better Man, Dune Part 2, Wicked, and Alien Romulus. None of those are small teams of people. All of those are massive, thousands of people working on the movie, and groups of people, and that it doesn't align with the small mindset of, hey, these guys did it with like 2 lollipops and like a prayer, you know. It doesn't align with last year's model of what best visual effects were, because in my opinion, last year the best visual effects was not the best of not the best in the sense of like quality wise. Let's go to frame 10 here. Try to align this up. Do screen. Let's do multiply, and then just brighten this up a little bit. I like adding this Z defocus in here. It just kind of like blurs things in a nice way that the regular blur doesn't do. Let's take this match move here, and we're going to set a keyframe. Let's turn off that for a second. Probably keyframe. We're going to add another transform in here to fix things. I am going to add this keyframe in there just for our sake. And then I'm going to turn on motion blur. I will say not a lot of motion blur happening here. We should add some kind of motion blur, right? And then we need to add some kind of a light on the inside of this, especially after the blade is completely out. Because you see how much highlight is on her skin here? You almost want to have that same amount of highlight coming through the hole inside of the hand. You need to have something in there in order for it to feel both a wet specularity as well as just like it is a hole that she's creating inside of the hand from the blade. I would say we probably now want to have some blood kind of coming down the hand here. So let's look at some more assets. Set that as output 709. I'm going to use an offset right now. Okay, so here's the distortion. We're probably going to want to merge this here. Place this like somewhere right there. Like 950. Next up is probably grade node. Maybe also doing a different distortion. I'm thinking that's probably the move here. Let's actually merge this directly onto its own layer using a different distortion node with the smart vectors coming from there. Let's see what this looks like. And I might want to do, let's do geometric, or actually maybe a multiply. Use a multiply with another merge node, and then merge that back over top of our footage. It's a little better. Probably a ZD focus. I might also want to use a grid warp, and then before the transform. Yeah, what the heck? Okay, and then let's just make it so that it goes down the hand a little bit more. And then, of course, we'll want to re-enable our other merge just so we could see where everything's kind of coming from. But let's just adjust this grid warp a little bit more to line things up a little better. Okay, now with this vector distort, I'm not going to do a hold frame. We're going to add some motion blur in, and then let's go ahead and render this out. Go to frame 10 again. Liquid on stuff can sometimes be a little tricky. Render this out RGBA, and then let's put this inside of our our pre-render folder. The reason why we render this out is so that way we don't have to calculate the motion blur or the vector distort on every single frame. we're just going to be merging this over top of our footage as its own like layer, as you will. Okay, let's go ahead and import this now. So if we swap this out, should look no different. Hit auto alpha just in case. And let's see, let's disable that just to play everything back. We currently have the rest of our hand kind of getting brought in here. Let's try this. Let's do a frame hold. Okay. Okay, we're going to use this part of our hand. Okay. Do RGBA on that. And let's blur this guy. By the way, you want to talk about some jaw-dropping visual effects. Holy crap. Pirates of the Caribbean was just like ahead of its time with their visual effects for like Davy Jones and all of that. Insanity. Okay, so we're going to use Smart Vector. Let's do, or Vector Distort. We're using this frame and set Smart Vectors to that. Gorgeous. And then we're just going to plus that over top of that. Let's use this. We'll set the white point to that. Okay. That's perfect. And then we set the black point to that. Okay. Now let's set the lift here to what's the darkest spot of this? That. And then let's set the gain to, and we'll adjust this, of course, this. Okay. So now when we go back over here, that should swap everything from kind of like the blue to like more of like a highlight of the red. Then we can change this gain value here. If we pull up that, might actually probably just grab another grade node at this point and then boost that, bring that down. It kind of just creates more of the highlight section. I might even just change this to overlay and maybe screen actually. Yeah. And then take the grade node, and then all we have to do is then just bring down the average color, which maybe instead of using a grade node, let's use a color correct, change the shadows on this to a little bit lower. Beautiful. Now you've got yourself a mark highlight. Now we're adding a highlight to over top of our blood that we already have. So let's see, we're going to save that and then let's play it back, see how that looks. Which we don't need the highlight here because we will have the blade in. But when that pulls out, we add that highlight in, and then it now adds a little bit more 3Dism to it. Let's render out this vector distort as blood 3 into our pre-renders folder. And that way we don't have to re-render in all that. I gotta add blood now in because it feels a little fake now just because there's no blood. Yeah, we'll do this one and then I'll just roto it. We're gonna roto it manually. I think that's the move. Okay, so right about here, we bring in the blood, baby. All right, so that's good. Let's use an offset right now. Let's just tick this back. Okay, we've got. I want the initial splatter. I don't know. Let's actually invert this. Scale it to -1 width. There we go. Then you take this guy. Probably line it up somehow. I don't know, guys. I don't know. It's so hot, though. Look at that. That's hot as heck, man. Oh, it's because we're bringing everything up. Let's select this as our blood color. So if we set the white point right now, keep black point the same, but let's go ahead and set the highlights of this thing right here. Probably going to set it to the same brightness as this. So let's use the gain of this or something. Let's probably do that one. Let's use this guy here. I'm going to use the same frame range probably. So we'll set the frame range here to that. That'll make everything a little bit easier when previewing it. Also going to merge this over a constant. That way I can actually see what I'm doing. Let's add another tracker in. We need to track the hand, which we weren't doing before, but now we need to, okay? Just track that. I don't even know what that is. Okay, these tracker nodes here, I'm going to then output, let's do stabilized baked, and then we'll go ahead and apply that to this here. And since it's already being placed under this with this constant, that will already have the correct resolution for what we need. It's just not the right angle. So since it's not at the right angle, it just feels like a little, doesn't feel correct. It's got to be more like a downward angle, I think. This stuff's always a little, like, I feel like I never have the right type of blood for what I need when I'm comping these kinds of things. Honestly, it's a little slow. So would we do that after time offset? No, probably before that. Let's change this to a retime. Make it twice as fast. Go to 1025, and then let's just adjust our offset again. And then we change our time offset to probably about right here. And then let's just play that back. It's a lot of blood, dude. Okay, let's merge that back in. Go back to 1025, which is our first frame. That's correct already. Change the grading. Hopefully that's a little closer to what we want. And let's merge this, right? So let's change that keyframe there. Set that to 0. And then now when that pulls out, we should, oh, that's using stabilize. That's our problem. Let's just invert it. It's probably the easiest thing to do. Beautiful, dude. We're so close. Okay, so then we just set our keyframes. Actually, I'll just do this after. So we'll set our keyframes here to, there's correct, but I'm probably just going to adjust it ever so slightly. And there, probably bring that back a little bit more. A little more. Probably turn it off at that point. See how that plays now. I might also, before we do any of that, go into the top here. And then let's just use a merge node and a roto node. I'm just probably going to get rid of everything that's just like the circle section thingy of the blood. If I use the stencil, that'll probably, or stencil, we can erase it a little bit easier. And then for our stabilization, we need to set the motion blur to that, as well as our other motion blur that we have here. Should help with everything. There's the blood. I almost feel like that's all the blood that should be coming out, but then it does like this second wave of blood that's coming out. It's too comical. So let's do this. This frame here, we'll set a keyframe, and then the next keyframe here, we'll just have it turn off. Yeah, that looks so much better. It's just that little extra couple frames, really. I could foresee one of his notes being that the knife feels too... I am tracking her hand here and then placing the knife on the other side of the hand based off of the movement of her rotating. But because could be a little too obvious at that point that the tip is just kind of, it doesn't look like it's floating, but it looks like it could be floating. So that might be something we need to consider. We have this blood here. Let's offset it. So when she pulls the knife out, like right here, I actually want the same exact blood. So I'm just going to copy paste this real quick. And then we do that, this, no animation, that with that. This goes here, and then let's just try this real quick. We're not doing the same transform, stabilize, or match move that we were doing before. I just want the offset that we have. We actually probably want to do a different offset. We're going to do a few frames earlier. So the blood's kind of coming right there, and we'll have to do our own roto of the hand. Let's go ahead and do this. We'll set the keyframes, and then we just kind of just go backwards on that. Okay. And then that kind of like goes out there, I think. So set the keyframe and then go out. And then the first frame is right here. Let's set the keyframe as in and out. Perfect. So now it's kind of like We'll have to roto that part where the hand is again, but just like to add some blood to the other side. Also, that like amount of focus compared to everything else does not match. So I'm going to add in a nice little ZD focus. Let's set it to bladed. And let's just increase the amount of ZD focus here because it's going to be past this hand. Probably something like that. I like that. And it's all pretty sweet. Now I just need the actual hand rotoed. I don't like the ending on it, but it's like that part's really strong. And it just like disappears. I think that like this keyframe from here on out, let's just change it to fade out. How would that look? It's less jarring. Now I just need to get rid of it on the hand. Easy fix, not gonna lie. Let's add another merge node in, and this time we're just gonna add a roto, and we're just gonna stencil out exactly what we want to get rid of. Okay, guys, so let's set that to stencil, set this to RGBA, and then we just need to follow along the areas in which the hand is. So easy enough. Just go to this frame and select the areas in which the hand exists. And just do that for a few frames. Okay, that's set to RGBA, which then means that it's stenciling out the blood in those specific areas. If I go back to here, we could see the blood being added. Let's merge that back over top of everything. Beautiful. So the blood's on the other side of the hand. Let's just test that out, see how it looks. It's not quite working. Let's find a different blood splatter. But at least the roto's done now. I might want to copy paste my grade. Let's copy the read time as well and just see what we can get out of that. It already exists. There he is. First of all, it's inverted in the wrong direction. Does that mean I have to redo this? That would suck. Yeah, let's try that. So there's this. This is the blood. And then let's do the time offset here to be, so at 1025 to about right here. Let's do that. And then we do the retime on this to be about double speed. That's fine. I want it to feel like the knife just got pulled out, and then you just get that like quick, like really quick. I'd like that, but if the retime was like 4 or something crazy, I don't know. Scrubbing to find that perfect spot, man. Let's add a transform node in. Let's scale this bad boy up. And yeah. But we're going to take that and then we're going to merge that actually over top of the rest of our image. So that should be blood back there. Yes, we are boosting the exposure right now just so that way we can see everything. But one thing we need to do now is add in our grain. This is the original grain of the plate that we denoised it to do the rest of our comping. So I like to use DOS grain. That's going to give us a really nice replacement grain. I'm just going to reactivate it. We use this to analyze the differences of grain. Probably do that. So yeah, so now if we do this, we should be able to see that our grain matches pretty closely. It's obviously going to be different, but it's matching pretty closely. Probably make sure this crop is set correctly. But I wanted to show you guys the upload process and like what that looks like. I use Frame.io for VFX reviewing. The process is essentially rendering out your clips, and then you can upload them to here. Anything approved gets inside of the approved folder. And this is just a really great way of organizing your visual effects shots and allowing clients to leave notes directly on your videos. You can actually leave notes directly on the video on Frame.io and the specific frame number in which you need to be. So that's really great about it. And then, of course, I mentioned this already, but I use Asana, and the reason why I use Asana is to keep track of like what's in work in progress, and then if I'm about to submit this, then I can just drag this over to the submission column. Really useful, and my whole computer is just completely frozen right now. But I want to show you guys what we came from. For any of you guys who just joined, this was the original plate, and then this was the final comped version of the shot. So we basically comped in this knife as well as the blood, and then also comped in some nice shadows and things like that onto the knife, of course. And then when the knife gets pulled out, we added some nice little blood splatter effects and things like that. So this was a little bit more of an advanced visual effects shot than, we've done in the past, but I wanted to do something like this because, also because it's an actual job that I'm working on right now. But the director was like, hey, yeah, you can do that on stream. So I was really happy I could show you guys some of the workflow and process of doing this. I used DaVinci Resolve to create all the visual effects plates and things like that. I do want to, real quick, again, thank all of our wonderful Patreon subscribers right here. If you guys would like to join the Patreon, you guys get access to all live stream project files that we do and everything like that. So you guys can do whatever you want with it. I don't know if I can share these plates, but I certainly can put up the project files themselves. The plates aren't mine to redistribute, so I don't think we can do that. Make sure to join the Discord and share your stuff. I like to see your guys' stuff that you guys post in the work in progress tab, as well as everything else. But you guys have a good one. Stay cool and do all the things that the cool people do, like make visual effects, right? All right. See you guys. Bye.